Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rob with Balderton, and this is Chad from Revolut. So very briefly, I'm a partner at Balderton Capital. Our aim is to be the best Series A investor in tech companies from Europe. That's what we do day in, day out. We have 4 investments here, including Peakon, Vivino, Simple Feast. And I personally do a lot of FinTech. So I worked a bit with Revolut in the past and with other companies like Zego or Go Cardless or a bunch of other FinTech and insurance businesses. And we were lucky enough to be the first venture investor in Revolut. It's been a fantastic journey for us. When we invested, the company had 0 users. Now at over 7.5 million, as Chad corrected me yesterday on Twitter, that the title of the session has become completely outdated. It was 0 to 6 million. It's now 0 to 7.5 million over the weeks since we published the program.
Oh, wait, 2 minutes.
Pretty impressive acceleration.
8 million.
8 million? Really? OK. Be straight on Twitter. So let's start there. I mean, maybe we'd like to, the general topic for today is how Revolut have achieved that amazing growth. But maybe we'll start with you, Chad, a little bit of how you came into Revolut and how that all started.
It's very unique. I think my career started in politics, doing policy, communications, and that side of things. Then spent decided I wanted to go into tech, moved over to Rocket Internet through Berlin and London, working on some companies there. And then knew what to get into FinTech space. It was emerging at that point. It was becoming new. I knew it was the next thing. Didn't have a clue who Revolut were. Knew some of the other challenger banks that were up and coming. I think the funniest thing I liked is when I sat down in the room, I sat with Nick, our founder, who's like a very straight-talking, to the point. He's not your typical tech founder who's like bouncy and they're going to change the world and skipping around. Nick was just very much sat me down and went, I just want you to know, I don't believe in marketers. I'm just hiring you because an investor told me to, which was probably Balderton.
It was Daniel, yeah.
So I think at that point he sold me. It was very much, for me, about the vision, not about where the company was at the minute. It was, I think, where Revolut stood out is its vision was much more grand than other FinTech players in the space. Yeah. It wanted to be a one-stop shop, a control center doing banking, crypto, stocks and trades, insurance, you name it. And then equally, he had an ambition, something which I find is rare for a UK tech company, to genuinely go global. He wasn't satisfied with just building a UK tech company, maybe scaling into Europe. It was like all over Europe, North America, Asia. And I think for me, that was sort of a winning recipe. And touch wood, so far, so good.
Fantastic. So how many users did Revolut have when you joined?
Ooh, give or take a couple of 100K.
OK, so tiny, yeah.
And it was a tricky one as well, because I think one of the biggest challenges I had as a marketing and comms was people identified Revolut almost entirely as a travel card. And they looked at other challenger banks as like the daily spending card. And that was a tough one for me because my job was to change that. And I think part of that came from the product, building everyday features that people wanted to use. So, I mean, raise your hands if you have Revolut. Everyone else, you know where the door is? So we built things like spare change roundup, showing you what you spend on different groceries, restaurants, setting budgets, things like that. But then the other side was just telling the narrative, telling the story. And I think one thing that Revolut built incredibly well, as a reputation, was just speed of delivery. I think it became almost a monthly basis where we were launching a new product and a new feature and a new service, and that genuinely got people excited because in addition to the marketing and the comms telling them that we were more than just a travel card, they could actually see it because they were seeing new products that would actually benefit them in their everyday lives. So when you bring those two things together through product, marketing, comms, it just clicked really well.
So that was I guess your early days was all about getting that story right and helping shape the Revolut story, and then a lot of comms and PR around that?
Yeah, because one thing we do, I've always been this way personally as a marketer. I don't believe you do marketing by just getting a huge budget and going out there and splashing it on paid social on this. I think I see a lot of people doing this before they've even really identified a brand, before they really know who their target customer is, before they really understand what their goal is. So I think one thing we try to do, and this was sort of not by choice because there wasn't a budget anyway, but was just really focus on community marketing. Because you have to remember, financial services was so boring, so corporate. It hadn't changed in 20 years. And this new fintech space was very young. It was just emerging. So we had a real opportunity to really set the tone of what the future of financial services could look like. And that spanned from everything. It spanned from our app. It spanned from our tone of voice as a company, the way we speak to our customers. And it came down to our values as a company, being open, being honest, being transparent, things you'd never expect to hear from banks. So just some examples of things we did. I don't know if you remember, but there was British Airways was hacked, and lots of customers' financial details was compromised.
Yeah.
You're talking millions of people. So we immediately identified all of the customers who used Revolut cards who were impacted. We immediately froze their cards, immediately sent them out real-time communication explaining why we did this to protect them, and we had a new card sent out to them within 2 days. And the feedback we generally had from people is, my bank would never do this, like not in a million years. And that was sort of the very proactive, transparent approach that we took. And then it stemmed equally from our tone of voice. So we knew the way. One thing I've always believed is banks are renowned for hidden fees and cross-selling you products and services you don't need. And I think one way they do that very successfully is because they talk to you in a way that you just can't engage with or you don't understand. It's jargon, it's very corporate language. So what we wanted to do was really, what I say to all my team of copywriters is, speak to a customer like you would a friend. So, and we even have a rule book. There's words like inconvenience, and we change it to trouble. So there's like a rule book. If you're going to use this word, change it to this word, so that everything is clear, it's simple, and it's fun as well. Might not be to everyone's liking, but Revolut often does have a cheeky side to it. If you follow us on social media, we like to poke fun at things. When it's customers' birthdays and anniversaries with Revolut, we send them personalized push notifications and things like this. So, but the biggest growth driver from us was PR. We had a very strong media relations team. We quickly localized that. One thing I see that constantly, in my view, doesn't work is companies being dependent on agencies for everything. So when they expand into new markets, oh, I'm going to pay 15K retainer for an agency here, there. It's very expensive. They're not part of your business. They don't really know the company. So I saw the value in hiring local communications managers in each country where we were launching, where they had local contacts, they spoke the language, they already knew the landscape, they were passionate, and they could equally run our events on the ground as well, having a real community side to it. So that was
got that entirely internally. Do you have any external PR firms, or is
over the last 6 months, we have adopted one on the corporate communication side, more on the sort of strategic side. But in terms of like the consumer communications, everything's still in-house.
And these people you hired in the different countries, were they PR people, or were they just like young, enthusiastic? Yeah,
we have a big, scary Viking-looking man there who's former head of PR at Microsoft and now Revolut for the Nordics, Andreas. So most of the comms guys we have on the ground, they are ex-tech or from large agency backgrounds.
Fantastic. So early growth, all about that PR, and were you out there looking for stories like the British Airways story? Were you, you were absolutely actively searching for that. What can we take advantage of? And
exactly, you've got to have a very diverse strategy. So you have your corporate communications, right, where you can be doing things like thought leadership. You can be pitching out your chief information security officer, talking about the #1 way hackers are getting access to accounts. You can pitch out your founders to do more personal brand stuff, but it goes way beyond that. One thing we did that was very successfully was data-driven PR. So we built like travel reports. So we built one report that was like the European cost of living report. And we looked at all the data to look at the difference between groceries, rent costs, transport in all the countries in Europe, built this extensive report, and it got global coverage in every country, from everyone from the FT to the Guardian and more. So because what that did, not only does it bring growth, what it also brought was brand awareness, but of course it brings trust. Because suddenly we were a small, young fintech company saying, hey, put your salary into us, trust us with your money. That's hard to do when they just see an ad on Facebook, right? But if you read a newspaper and you trust that newspaper and you see a very positive story about a company that sounds great, you're more likely to have an affinity with that brand. And you're more likely to trust it because you think, oh, well, that newspaper wouldn't cover them if there was something dodgy there.
Exactly.
So I think it equally built trust, which for a fintech company was very important, because one of the arguments banks always made against companies like Revolut in the beginning was, oh, they might not be here in 1 year, which was quite valid. But I think we've obviously changed that tune.
It's that balancing, the tightrope you have to walk, I think, is Revolut, of getting people's attention and being a bit cheeky and a bit in your face, while also keeping people's trust. And it's not been a sort of
It's a fine line, right?
Yeah.
Because we're in a very crowded market, and I think any good marketer will explain the fact that you need to stand out from a crowded market. You need to have your own identity. You need to be willing to take risk, and you won't always get it right, and we haven't. But we're willing to take those risks and learn from those mistakes in order to understand how we go forward, where to double down, what works and what doesn't work. I think I would never hire someone in the team who isn't willing to take risk and try something new.
Yeah. No, and to me, as an investor, I think that's key to Revolut's success is that attitude, right? It's just about going out there and experimenting. And when you get it wrong, that you admit it quickly and address it. By the way, I think we're running Slido. So if people have questions from the audience, please do put them up on Slido. Someone else is in charge of that, so hopefully it will work magically. There we go. Fantastic. So now you're at, obviously a lot more scale, right? 7.5 million users. Now some meaningful scale in Scandinavia as well.
Yeah, so I think Scandinavia for us was not the priority initially, because actually from a banking perspective, you're far more advanced than most other parts of Europe. That was the reality, right? And one thing you know when you're a startup is you go for the low-picking fruit. Where can you go and have the most meaningful impact? Because there's limited competition, the industry is very, ridiculously bad. So I think that was the right strategic move to make. But we always knew that, when you look at the Nordics, it's an incredibly tech-savvy region, incredibly wealthy region, and equally some of the biggest travelers in the world, which was a key incentive for us to use that. And I think I'll be corrected after, but I think in Sweden's our fastest growing market in the region, now about 50 to 60K users. I think Denmark is about 30 to 40, somewhere between 30 and 40. I'm literally looking at my PR guy. And Norway is, Norway.
Same as Denmark. Okay.
Same as oh wow, okay, Norway's catching up. It's growing massively, but we've still got a lot more work to do. So we've hired a team on the ground now. So we've got about 4 or 5 people here. We're hiring more, and we're going to really start putting some paid acquisition into the Nordics as well.
Yeah, that's my next question was now you're 7.5 million users. You're adding 25, 30,000 a day now?
So what we found is, in terms of like the organic marketing in-house, is that we blew the steam. There was only so far we could take it. We averaged about 15,000 new accounts per day, and it just, for about 3 to 4 months, it just wouldn't go above that. So we had to face reality and say, okay, we now need to start chucking some money into it. And the way we've done it is not traditional. One thing, a lot of people think marketing is going on metro stations and putting your brand everywhere. And for me, that's not really a great way to get acquisition. You might see somewhere in the region of 5 to 6% uptake, maybe. And it's very hard to track unless you've got a code on there that says use code, but how many people do that? So it's more of a branding exercise. So we wanted to put money into what we could track and what we could guarantee would work. So the simple solution was we've already got this huge, loyal customer base who love our product. They're already referring it. Let's start incentivizing people to do it more. So we did like a give money, get money campaign. So if you refer a friend, you'll get money. If they sign up and start making payments, they'll get some money. And we put a few million into it. And we grew from 14,000, and we're now averaging between 25 and 30,000 accounts per day, which is several millions per year. So it's scary on one sense, because with that growth comes huge responsibility of upscaling the whole business. Customer support, compliance, you name it. Everything has to keep in line with that growth. So while it's a good thing, I think you've just got to manage that growth and make sure that you have everything in preparation ready to deal with that upkeep.
Scaling out,
Is that the rain?
Yeah.
It's worse than Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. It's not often that a Scottish guy gets to complain about the weather. How do you... So over your spend, how much, presumably the majority is now referrals. The above the line is still pretty small spend, like the subways and the...
On the subways, what we do with subways, I don't know if anyone saw, but for Pride, we launched our rainbow cards, and we did a great feature with this. We partnered with charities as well. So with Revolut, you can round up your spare change on every card transaction to the nearest, what do you have here? Some funny money, kroner or something, right? And you stash that spare change away into your savings wallet. So we did that. We partnered with charities. So we partnered with Save the Children, WWF, ILGA Europe, which is an LGBT charity. So when we launched Pride cards, that was quite a big thing. It was during Pride Month. And unlike most brands who just changed their logo rainbow and suddenly they're inclusive and all this stuff, we actually wanted to do something that was meaningful. Oh, wait, got it somewhere. But yeah, there we go.
Yeah, iconic. There you go.
So we went on the tubes for that, and we worked with like prominent LGBT influencers in the UK, in Dublin, in Ireland, in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and put that all around the place. So that was like but for us, that was more about our brand, our identity, showing what our values mean. So we don't plow too much into that, only when we have genuinely something meaningful to say and to do.
Yeah, then you invest behind it.
Exactly.
Okay.
All the big spend goes purely into paid social and referrals.
Okay. But paid social does work. So there is that's a meaningful channel for you.
Absolutely. It's trackable. It means we can be very granular in who we target in terms of our audience. And one thing we're doing now, I cannot stand most influencer marketing agencies. They just do my nutting with, they're going to give you someone from like, I don't know, Love Island who's going to come on and put a post on. It's ridiculous. What I've found effective is micro influencers. They don't need to have a big following, right? They maybe need just have 5 or 6K followers on Instagram, but people follow them and respect them for tech. Right? So you look at, there's plenty of them out there. There's one guy I follow on YouTube, and anytime Apple releases a new product, I don't watch their keynote, I watch him, because he will give me the real insight. So someone like that is really effective, because his audience will listen to him. So we're really trying to do influencer marketing, but to a very granular community level, and people who are actually relevant to our industry, not someone who's a Z-list celebrity from appearing in a TV show, or something like that.
So now we had a Balderton marketing event last year, and you spoke a lot about that. And how did you find these people? How did you find the good influencers, not the Z-list, ex-Love Island people?
Yeah. I think the easiest way is the local teams, right? So when you look at the local teams, they all have a local understanding of who the market is. So I think if we struggle, we then work with an agency who hopefully have the ability to find these people as well. But typically what I like to do is, as you said, we don't do a centralized approach. So not everyone's based in London. We have a very localized growth approach in each market. And we hire people who already have that insight and that experience. So for example, when I look at the Nordics, they're already mapping out the people in Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, who are considered tech or money. They're prominent money bloggers. So it's all done internally at the minute. You probably could use an agency, but I think it's relatively simple to go and find these people. Just with a simple search, and it means you can have a much more one-to-one relationship.
Okay, let me take a couple of the questions from the audience. What percentage of users has Revolut acquired from a refer a friend and affiliate campaigns? So yeah, if you're willing to share that, how important a channel is it for you?
Well, you can do the percentage yourself, right? So as I said, we were averaging about 14,000 through our organic channels. We're now at 25,000. So the difference is huge. But my advice is do not do referrals when you first start out, because I think you're going to get the wrong people. You're going to get people that's going to milk it. They'll get their friend to sign up just to get the 10 quid, right? And then they're not going to use it. You maybe haven't quite got that brand awareness. I think one thing I'm glad we did is we managed to keep it off as long as we could, so that we had a huge proportion of customer base, very loyal, very committed, and there was more of a sell. We'd built more products. We'd established ourselves. We had much more diversity as a service. So yeah, at the minute, it's well over 60% of our current growth, and we haven't fully released it in every country yet, because again, we need to manage that growth. So once it dries out in one market, we'll open up a new market.
Fantastic, and keep pushing. Yeah, fantastic. There's a question here: is that disrupting conventional banking business requires transparency and trust. So does this mean you'll avoid being acquired?
Oh yeah, there's no chance of that. You just need to look at our founder. His goal is not money. His goal is not selling. His goal is to build, the first truly ever global bank. And he isn't settling on that. And I mean, I said to Nick the other week, I was like, how do you think we're performing? And he's just like, not good enough. I was like, well, okay. He was like, where are we in our journey? He went 1%. I used to have a lot more hair when I first joined Revolut. Less wrinkles too. But so yeah, I think that's the number one KPI is still growth and expansion. So in the next few weeks, we're launching in the US. We're then launching in Canada, Singapore, Japan, and we've already launched in Australia. And what's cool about this as well is for any of you who have friends or family in these countries, right now, sending money cross-border to another country takes days, right? It takes 1 to 2 days, and they also charge you fees, right? With Revolut, if you have a Revolut account here in Europe, and your friend or family has Revolut in the US, Singapore, Japan, you'll be able to send money like a peer-to-peer payment. It'll be instant and free. So we're completely eliminating the money transfer business. there'll be no need for it to exist. And that's huge for marketing. People don't get this yet, is what an incentive that is for me to make my KPIs easier. Because you're going to have so many people convincing their friends and family in other countries to get Revolut because they can just send money to each other instantly. So I can then I can kick back and just sit back and hopefully let them do it. But that for me is game changing. We're disrupting stocks industry, tearing it apart. International money transfers, truly tearing down borders. And there's still a hell of a lot more to do.
Fantastic, very impressive. I'm getting a look, so lots more questions, but I'm sure we can take them afterwards. So, Chad, congratulations, and thank you very much.
Cheers.
99% to go.